Welcome back, Patriots. This is yet another episode of the Outspoken Patriot. I am the creator and the host, Michael Kinnett. I'm excited about this episode, guys, because usually here at the OP, we type up a script, we kind of plan some things out, but today we are just going straight into this episode, no script. We're going to dive into some topics that are affecting all of us here in America and really just kind of have a conversation. That's what we're all about here at the OP, is having a conversation and focusing on the topics that are affecting our lives, the lives of hard-working Americans that love this country. So a few of these points that we're going to touch on are the Keystone Pipeline, the State of the Union address, which Biden kind of flip-flopped on a bunch of major topics, so we'll cover some of those, and then we're just going to talk about what does Russia's effect in the Ukraine and the area surrounding that have on Americans. So how is this going to affect us? We've already seen it affect us at the pump, but what else could happen? That's what we're going to focus on. So stay tuned. We got a lot of good stuff coming up. I just want to take a second though to say go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like this video at the end if you like anything that we've said here at the OP, which again, any patriot would. So go ahead and do that because we want this channel to keep growing. It is important that our American ideas, our views, our morals and values, that they get shared with all those people out there that might be in the middle, that have no clue what's going on, and we need to restore our great America. Okay, so let's jump right in it. So, Keystone Pipeline. Here is a quote from Sam Brown. He is running for the U.S. Senate. He's a war hero, he was injured overseas, and he has come back to defend our freedoms in the Senate, which is great. Here's a quote that he had. He made this post on Facebook during the State of the Union address, and he's also said some more things like this after. So here's the quote. "If you'd rather buy oil from Iran than build the Keystone Pipeline, you are either a fool or forget which nation you swore an oath to serve." Exactly. Is anyone else feeling this way, or am I just losing my mind? I mean, think about it. We have the opportunity to produce our own oil here in the U.S. It's also shared with Canada, but here in the U.S. to have access to oil. So who's out there right now is going to the gas pump and you see these prices and you're thinking, okay, what do I need to cut out of my budget in order to continue to drive? Or am I just going to have to sell this car and purchase a couple horses and let's go back to the 1800s, right? I mean, seriously, this is ridiculous. We work hard all day. We want to be able to fill up at the pump without having a heart attack every time and be able to travel, go on road trips, just drive around on Sundays and not have to worry about it. But instead of this, we have a President Biden, that comes into office, cancels the Keystone Pipeline, and now we are reliant on our enemies. So the most imports come from Russia and the Middle East. But instead of having all of this oil in the U.S., we rely on Russia, who's our enemy. Someone write out an equation and show it to me so that this makes sense. Now, you can be a Democrat, a liberal, far left, far right. Why wouldn't you want your country to be successful? There's something going on here. And actually, I am going to go ahead right now as we talk and pull up a quote from Jim Lucas. If you are in Seymour, Indiana, you know Jim Lucas or surrounding areas. Love him, hate him. He says a bunch of facts, so we gotta love that, right? So, here is the quote. After Obama said they wanted to fundamentally change America, ask yourself if Biden's domestic energy, money printing, and border policies are unintentional. I'll just come out and say it. I believe the Democratic Party is trying to bring America to its knees and crush the middle class. The National Republican Party is an accomplice. What have they done to stop it? Now, this is really interesting, and I'm glad that Representative Lucas brought this up, because if you think about it, if America has oil here, we've already mentioned this before, if America has oil here on its soil, why are we relying on other countries? What's the end goal here? If we have plenty of jobs for Americans to fill, why are we continuing to give them money? What's going on? And if the polls are right, and the Republicans win back the House and Senate, and they don't do anything about this, then we have some even bigger issues, because not only can we not trust one party, we can't trust the other, which we hoped was for our American freedoms and America first. Now, if you're listening to this and you think that the Keystone Pipeline is just the dumbest thing ever, and that it's going to ruin, what did AOC say? Ruin the earth in 12 years, that climate change would just completely destroy the earth, well, go ahead and leave a very educated comment in the comment section below this video and just tell us why this is such a terrible idea to put America first and have our own energy supply here in the US. And I'm interested to hear about it, because honestly, I don't think there's any good reason. And that again goes back to Representative Lucas's point that if there's no good reason to do any of this, then what are the politicians getting out of this deal? What's going on behind the American people's back that's benefiting politicians and basically making our lives harder? Okay, so we've talked about energy independence, which would be great for all Americans, even those in California, to be able to fill up their gas tank and not worry about anything else when it comes to gas prices. Yay, energy independence. So, next on the list, we have the State of the Union address, which I'm not going to pull up any quotes. I'm going to attach the State of the Union address in this video down in the comments section, so you can go ahead and check that out. But when I was watching in my college dorm, and I was sitting there heckling Biden on Facebook and out loud to myself. And specifically, it happened at one point. Now, this point was when he said that we don't have to defund the police, we need to fund the police. And then Nancy Pelosi stood up behind him and started rubbing her knuckles together like she was cold or something, or really excited, like a kid on Christmas opening a present. And then Kamala stands up and starts clapping. She doesn't know what's going on. And then all the representatives of the Democrat Party stand up and go crazy. And I'm sitting there like, what? We just went through, what is it now, 2 summers where they're calling for defund the police, and everyone's saying this, including Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And now they're acting like they're the party that has been saying this whole time. And I'm sitting there, and I literally say out loud, what? Because I can't believe this. It's, if you were sitting there, okay, and you're listening to this, and you're a Democrat, and you've been posting on your Facebook, defund the police, and all of a sudden your leader says, oh, we don't need to defund the police, we need to fund the police. Did you stand up and cheer? Because I'm just curious. This is getting ridiculous, and I guess that they did this because their polls are terrible, and they're just going to get destroyed in the midterms. But you got to realize that you either have to have your own values and the topics that you put first when you vote, or realize that you just go along with whoever's in charge of your party, you just go along with it. And we have to realize that that is not being an American. Being an American is standing up for your values and freedoms, not going along with whatever a politician says that just so happens to represent your political party. When we start putting parties first here in America, then this country will no longer exist, because we are founded on the idea that we, the people, control this land. We, the people, make the rules and the laws, and if we don't like it, we're going to fight for our freedom. That's the way it's been. That's the way, hopefully, it will always be, because of strong Americans like us. And I had another moment that happened during the State of the Union, and it got another what out of me as I was watching when he said that we have to secure our border. And I'm waiting to see on Facebook and CNN and the internet say, racist Joe Biden calls for security at the border. But no, that didn't happen. No one talked about that. They just stood up and cheered yet again as I was sitting saying, what's going on? But yes, he called for funding the police and he called for border security, which blew my mind away because I thought that both of those meant you were racist and you didn't care for anybody else but white America. But apparently, it's actually a good idea, which all of us have been saying who have been dealing with these issues, whose families have had loved ones killed by illegal immigrants, or have had officers killed because of people buying into this defund the police, and the BLM activists who are saying, screw the police and other vulgar terms. But when your poll numbers end up going down, you realize that maybe your policies are terrible and only support the far left, which is a handful of blue-haired college students. So real Americans working out there every day and wanting to live in a safe community realize that these policies are terrible and they are going to vote you out. But I hope that you Americans there, even if you're Democrats, whatever, it doesn't matter, that you realize that these people flip-flop on their opinions, on their policies all the time. Find someone that represents your values. That's what means something. When you find someone that represents the things that you love in life, then you know that those ideas will be protected when they go and try to make laws or pass bills. So we talked about old Flip-Flop Joe and the Democrats flip-flopping on all of these major policies and topics that were considered huge during the 2020 election. But now let's switch our focus over to Russia. And I know that some of you out there are pretty worried just because if the U.S. tries to do something a little more serious other than the sanctions that have no stopping ability to President Putin's abilities, then you're worried that maybe if the U.S. takes action, that there will be another war. And that's fair, because I see that as well. But we also have to realize that we are a strong nation, and strong nations do not back down to nations that are controlled by dictators and want to control people's freedoms. And that's one thing that's hard about being an American in a way, because we want so much to live with our freedoms and see other countries live with freedoms, but at the same time, we get so comfortable that we're not willing to go through hard times in order to secure these freedoms. To be honest, I think that we are going to be experiencing hard times just because of the same facts that have been stated in previous episodes and in this episode. We haven't experienced a hard time in a long time now. And when push comes to shove, we're the country that answers. We are the ones that are there for other citizens of other countries. Because eventually, those freedoms that are affected overseas reach our shores. And what's going to happen when we see Russia manipulating our economy? Well, we've already seen it in the oil industry because now we're dependent on them thanks to the closing of the Keystone Pipeline. But what else happens when, travel restrictions, or we can't feel safe overseas, we can't travel, which may be okay with a bunch of you because, to be honest, I don't want to go anywhere. I love America, so I'll stay here. But what's going to happen when we don't feel safe anymore? We're going to have to do something, right? Or you can just consider America second to China. And I don't want to see that, and I know a bunch of you want to see America first and America as the superpower, because if it is not, then I see this world falling apart. One good point we can look at from this is when World War II started, Europe was being defeated by Nazi Germany. When we entered the war, we saved Europe. And from then on, we were the beacon of hope, the beacon of freedom for the whole world. We made sure that we got involved with major world powers, with major countries when they had issues, especially in the 80s with Ronald Reagan. But ever since the 40s, we have been that beacon of hope for the whole world. And that's something we can't lose, because once we lose that, then China becomes that beacon. And it's not going to be freedom that follows them wherever they land on different soil. So just some advice from the OP. Don't worry about what's going on in Russia, but be concerned and get ready for what may happen here in the U.S. And this isn't some podcast telling you to freak out and be worried that World War III is going to happen. But it's possible that something escalates and escalates quick, especially if Putin's struggling so much in the Ukraine. He's going to get desperate and stuff's going to happen, and you need to be ready for it like our past generations here in America have been. They've always answered the call, and we have lived in peace because of them. But now it's time that we step up, that strong men in this country find a way to secure our home, protect our families. It's not time to cower down, act like everything's wrong here in America. Wake up, look around, see how great we have it, and realize that we need to protect it at any way possible. Now, I want to go ahead and open up this quote and share it with you all. This is one of my favorite quotes, and it kind of goes along with what we've been talking about. It's from Thomas Paine, and he says, "I prefer peace, but if trouble must come, let it come in my time, so that my children can live in peace." And that's what we're faced with right now. In World War I, the men and women answered the call. During the Great Depression, they worked through that, they went through the Great Depression, and they survived it. World War II came, and guess what? They defeated not only Nazi Germany, but also Japan. Well, here we are, and we see hard times ahead of us because of weak men. Weak men in office, and weak men here in the U.S. just as an average day American citizen. And we're going to be faced with hard times. We don't know when, we don't know what it's going to be, but we have to be ready because we are the American people. The politicians aren't going to be able to protect this country. It always falls on us, and we always answer the call because America is about we the people. It's not about political party. It's not about who's in office. It's about us and our freedoms. We keep this country good. We keep this country great. So, when you're at home this week, you're listening to the news and you start worrying, don't be worried, but get prepared. Because we have a lot of stuff going on. We have people in office that don't know what they're doing, rubbing their knuckles together in excitement as the president flip-flops on topics. Some of us are really frustrated. Why don't they open up the Keystone Pipeline so I can fill up for $2 instead of $4? And I get that. I'm frustrated too. But that frustration, that motivation, that feeling of maybe my life could be changed is what keeps America going because we are willing to defend what we have had. So don't worry, but get prepared. We as a nation are too great to let our freedoms be controlled by people in office. We didn't take that 245 years ago. We're not going to take it now. So, the Outspoken Patriot stands for freedom. We back the American people. We support you hard-working Americans out there. And remember, subscribe and comment below because comments are important to this channel. We haven't had a whole lot, and we've been really pushing that here at the OP. And the reason for that is because we want to cover topics that are important to all of you Americans out there. If we just cover topics that, I don't know, you don't care about, well, first, the Outspoken Patriot doesn't grow. And second, you don't have an outlet to express these feelings and get these topics on the radar. If I can be the outlet that can share these topics with politicians or those who represent us, then that's what I want to do. We are here for the average, everyday, hardworking American. And again, I thank you all for tuning in. Our views are going up each week, and I'm proud that the Outspoken Patriot was started with the goal in mind of representing all of you. So again, subscribe. Thank you for being here this week, and I'm looking forward to next week where hopefully we dive into some of the topics that you guys care about. This has been the creator and the host of the Outspoken Patriot, Michael Kinnett. And remember, united we stand. Let's come together and defeat these issues that are really weighing heavily on our minds. We are Americans, and we will always push through this. But we have to be strong. Strong men make good times, and let's do that for our future generations.